Okay, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm just assuming that is the case. I'm going to give everybody about a minute to hop on. I know we had a little over 20 people signed up for this. I know some of those folks were just signing up to get the recording later. So this is being recorded. So if you want to get this later, it will get sent to you as an attendee. Also, another pre-announcement, Miracle Bird, our presenter, who you can see there. I hope everyone can see us. I'm assuming everyone can see us. She has come down with a little bit of a cold. So I'm going to try to help do some of these preliminary. I'm going to do some of the preliminary slides in order to help her preserve her voice so she doesn't completely blow it out. So I had full intention of her doing this, but we're trying to make sure she doesn't just get worse. So, but yeah, we'll start here in a minute. See if anyone else. Okay, more people popping in. More people popping in. And we'll wait till 12:02. Oh, someone's raised their hand. Who raised their hand? I don't know who raised their hand. Which I guess, it is 12:02 now. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the Justice40 initiative webinar that is presented by Renew Missouri. My name is James Owen. I'm the executive director. Also coming to you live on this webinar is Miracle Bird. Hi, Miracle.
Hello.
Yeah, she still has some voice.
A little bit.
A little bit. So we are going to be doing this, as I think I mentioned earlier. We're going to be taking turns on some of these slides because Miracle is not feeling well and her voice is a little rough. So we'll just go ahead and get started because we have to get done by 12:50. We'll probably get done by 12:52 since we're starting late. If you need sort of a certificate, please let me know and I will provide that for you. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and then we'll get started, okay? All right. Okay, this is the Justice40 initiative. Here's our agenda. What is pollution and how does it affect minority communities? What is environmental justice and how is it defined? What is Justice40 and what does it cover? How is Justice40 to be implemented? Those are the agendas on topic for today. We will be saving questions to the end. If you want to ask questions at the end, you can type them out. I will share them with Miracle, and we will try to answer those. We will try to be done with that part of it by 12:40. And if our agenda goes a little short, I will be talking a little bit about some of the other work we are doing at Renew Missouri in regards to Justice40, and making sure that we we are talking exactly about how this is set up. So, Miracle, what just happened? It just yeah. Okay, there we go. Miracle, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I am Miracle Bird. I joined Renew back in March of 2023, so it hasn't quite been a year yet, so I'm fairly new still. But I'm working as the Southeast coordinator for Renew, and one of my goals within the organization is to help small communities, rural communities with strong minority populations, get access to renewable energy and help increase their energy burden, and also to educate them about what those things are and what they mean for them. I am qualified. I graduated from Southeast Missouri State University. I have my BA in political science with with a minor in Spanish and writing, and I'm also working on my master's of public administration. So I'll be finishing that up in May as long as everything goes well.
And Miracle, I know this is kind of a new development since we wrote this up, but you are also working on another level of your education. Is that right?
Yep, my master's. And then
Yeah.
also going to law school. I forgot about that. So
Right.
I'll be applying for that. I'll be applying
You
for
are,
that this semester.
yeah, you are studying for the LSAT now.
Yes, I take that in
Yeah.
October.
Yeah. Awesome. So everyone wish her the best of luck with that.
I would have
Uh,
greatly appreciated.
and don't say don't go to law school if you're in the comments. Okay. So who is Renew Missouri? As I mentioned, I am the executive director of Renew Missouri. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We were founded in 2006 to advance renewable energy and energy efficiency in the state of Missouri. Now, one of the reasons why we are looking at issues like Justice40 is because in the past 3 years, Renew Missouri has expanded its legislative and policy reach to the national level. We had worked on some narrow provisions of funding to the rural electric cooperatives to help them make a transition to clean energy. That had been through a number of iterations at the federal level that had been part of COVID relief, that had been a part of Build Back Better, and it eventually got signed into law under the Inflation Reduction Act. So we are now doing a lot of that work as well. That's why this particular subject is of interest to us, and it's one of the things that Miracle has been helping our group with. Renew Missouri, we are working to transform Missouri into a leading state in renewable energy and energy efficiency. We pursue that mission by working with utilities, by working with state and local governments, to work with firms and parties in clean energy industry field, as well as local communities to create policy changes that will lead to these adoptions. One of the things that Miracle has been doing for us specifically is working in Southeast Missouri, which is an area that we have not been very good about connecting with historically, just because of our central location in Columbia and the fact that we've had staff in St. Louis and Kansas City for a number of years, but we've never had anyone in Southeast or Southwest Missouri. That has changed in the past year, and we have had staff in both those areas of the state. So we're really excited about being able to be more involved with those local communities. And I want to make a special thanks to the sponsor of the CLE, Blitz Barget and Deutsch. They have selected to sponsor not only this CLE, but every CLE we're going to be doing for the 2023-2024 CLE season that will go until June 30th of next year. If you are a law firm that would like to sponsor our CLE series, please contact me at james@renewmo.org. We would love to have you a part of this. It is helping us with our mission to educate the public, and I feel that's important for us to help educate not only lawyers, as this does, which we've provided for free, but also for our supporters and people that we work with, because I generally think this is a really important topic. And I think that we can all use a little bit more information about this in the work we're doing. So thank you, Blitz, Barget, and Deutsch. I hope I'm saying that last word right. I am a mere hillbilly from Southwest Missouri, so forgive me if I'm not. Miracle, you want to take this? You want to take this away?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay.
So what is environmental justice? I will go ahead and start with the definition from the EPA. So they define it as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So a lot of times when we think of justice historically, we often think of things like the civil rights movement, and so kind of the discrimination that minorities and also low income families experienced during that time. So things like segregation and the Jim Crow laws in that era. And we think of justice at that time, we think of things like the bus boycotts and the peaceful protests and things like that. But environmental justice is something that actually came out of that movement. And for a while, it was oftentimes overlooked by the government and by other people that are not necessarily minorities or coming from low income backgrounds. Um, but it is a concept that grew out of that, and it began in the late 1970s, early 1980s. Um, and so people of color or in low-income communities, they often suffer disproportionately from pollution, associated health risk, and barriers to economic prosperity as a result of this investment from the federal government. So yeah, these communities are oftentimes very overlooked. People often forget that the environment affects them also. So they're often discriminated against, and they have to deal with certain issues that the more affluent and the white majority did not have to deal with during this time. You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yeah.
A really important quote. It states that systemic societal discrimination has created a legacy of inequity and disempowerment that has contributed to environmental injustice. So again, these communities are often very, very overlooked. They are oftentimes like openly discriminated against. I know that there is a town here in Southeast Missouri that was built right on a coal plant, and the harmful health side effects that they face are
Oh,
you're good.
back. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I know that people in that town have to deal with certain health effects, and it's a predominantly African American community. So we can kind of see some of the negative side effects and discrimination in that area. So it's still a prevalent issue today. But in the 90s is whenever we started to see even more of a shift for environmental justice. And we can see that through President Bill Clinton's executive order 12898, and that was passed in 1994. And so what this order did was it directed federal agencies to identify and address the disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of its programs, policies, and activities on minority populations and low-income populations. It also helps by instructing these agencies to avoid distributional disparities and to develop participatory mechanisms that benefit the community. And then one final thing that it did was create an interagency working group on environmental justice to provide guidance to federal agencies and assist in coordinating research and data collection on environmental hazards and human health. So during this initial beginning of the movement for environmental justice, a lot of it was just how do we address the issue? What are we going to do to address the issue? What kind of guidance can we offer? And there wasn't really much action that had to take place at that point, at that time. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Hey, Miracle, can I ask you a question before we go on?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about a community in Southeast Missouri, largely African American. I think there's a perception in some circles that most of the minority populations are in St. Louis and Kansas City, in the larger cities of this state. I mean, can you kind of, because you're from Southwest Missouri, you live in Southeast Missouri, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
what is the composition there? Is it, can you speak to that from a personal perspective?
Yeah, so in my hometown, which is Cape Girardeau, the majority is white Americans, and the minority is African American. But whenever you get farther south down into the Boot Hill, you start to see pockets of communities where the majority is actually African American, and they tend to be a lot smaller, a lot more rural. So you see pockets of it all across southern southeast Missouri once you get down past Cape Girardeau.
So yeah, so there are significant populations, minority majority communities in that part of the rural part of Missouri.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, good. I think that just is always important to point out because I think it sometimes gets overlooked. So
Very much so.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So pollution in minority communities. So climate change affects every single community within this country in some kind of way, but it does not affect every single community equally. Minority communities often deal with the worst effects of pollution, and they oftentimes have very minimal help from outside entities, which is kind of what I was talking about, like with that small town here. They have really bad health side effects from the pollution that's in their community, but they have very little help until somebody comes in to try to help them. So the government during the 90s and the Clinton era, they were starting to work towards building environmental justice and helping with environmental justice. But recently, we've had a large stride with the implementation of Justice40, and Justice40 is going to work to reduce those negative impacts. We can go to the next slide. So talked about Justice40, but what exactly is Justice40? So Justice40 is a federal government initiative that was enacted by President Biden in 2021 through Executive Order 14008. So the goal of this program is to allocate 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal investments to disadvantaged communities. So that's like a guaranteed 40% of these investments that's going directly towards disadvantaged communities. And it's implemented through many different programs, but the two we're going to focus on today are the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And something that I think is really important to note is that all of these programs that are working to implement Justice40 require stakeholder engagement and consultation to ensure that community stakeholders are meaningfully involved in determining program benefits. That's actually very important because in these small communities, they're often very closed off and insulated, and they don't always like outsiders coming in to try to save the day or to try to tell them that they have a problem. So by engaging them and making sure that they're involved in the process, they're much more likely to be open to the benefits of Justice40 and to all of these programs that are going to help them in the long run. So it's really important to make sure that they stay involved and through the entire process. All right, and so I talked about disadvantaged communities, but what exactly is a disadvantaged community? So the federal government has defined them with all of these variables, and I'll quickly run through them. It's important to know that a community doesn't have to have every single one of these variables. They just need to have one or more. So they are low income, high and or persistent poverty. The community must have, or it could have high unemployment and underemployment. It can have racial and ethnic segregation. It can have linguistic isolation, high housing cost burden and substandard housing, distressed neighborhoods, high transportation cost burden and or low transportation access. It can have disproportionate environmental stressor burdens and high cumulative impacts, limited water and sanitation access and affordability, disproportionate impacts from climate change, which is a big thing that we've been talking about at the beginning, high energy cost burden and low energy access, job loss through the energy transition, and access or a lack of access to healthcare. Those are the main variables. We can go to the next slide. And then the categories of investment. So these include any grant or procurement spending, financing, staffing costs, or direct spending, or direct benefits to individuals for a covered program in a Justice40 category. So these include things like climate change, clean energy and energy efficiency, clean transit, affordable and sustainable housing, remediation and reduction of legacy pollution, training and workforce development, and the development of clean water and wastewater infrastructure. And this is all coming straight out of that executive order from President Biden. And we can go to the next, and we'll delve a little bit deeper into some of these in the slides to come. So an important quote, I think, that captures the essence of Justice40 comes from this quote here. So I'll just read that real quick. It says, "To secure an equitable economic future, the United States must ensure that environmental and economic justice are key considerations in how we govern. That means investing in building a clean energy economy that creates well-paying union jobs, turning disadvantaged communities, which are very often historically marginalized and overburdened, into healthy, thriving communities, and undertaking robust actions to mitigate climate change while preparing for the impacts of climate change across rural, urban, and tribal areas." So with this order, we can see that the government is really trying to do more than past government or past predecessors in making sure that these communities are getting the justice that they deserve. You can go to the next slide. And James, I'll have you take over here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I have not figured out how to get my my video back up. So it's just going to be my voice. So the Inflation Reduction Act. This was signed into law on August 16th of 2022. This had been a bill that that has a lot of issues involved with it, involving prescription drug prices, involving Safety net matters, but our focus on this is going to be clean energy. A lot of this was worked on by another number of advocates for years, and getting to see this put into one piece of legislation is really exciting, and I think is going to really be transformative. One thing that this does, this creates climate and environmental justice block grants to support community-led projects and to address disproportionate environmental and public harms related to pollution and climate change. That's going to be money that's available, and that will, I think that is something that is being open now for people to apply for. It will fund fence line monitoring near industrial facilities. They have air quality sensors that are new, upgraded multi-pollutant monitoring sites, and monitoring and migration of methane and wood heater emissions. And that is going to make sure that that pollutants are not going to be having as much of an impact on these communities. This is also going to spur solar development projects in communities. Provides a 20% bonus credit for solar projects on federally subsidized affordable housing projects, and a 10% bonus credit for solar projects in low-income communities. Now, what's important about that is those numbers, those 20% credits and those 10% credits, are going to be on top of an already automatic 30% tax credit that you would be able to get for investing in solar. Part of what the Inflation Reduction Act did was created a 30% credit for that, but there were also additors on that. So it's not just these kind of additors. There's also ones involving if you have certain labor practices that are employed, you get a 10% increase. If you have a brownfield site, that's another 10%. If you are using domestically sourced equipment and material for your solar, that's another 10%. I should mention right now that is that's very challenging right now, because a lot of the material and equipment that is used for solar generation does come from other countries. But I think that other parts of the Inflation Reduction Act are trying to fix that. So those bonuses are in addition to, I think, what is a significant incentive for investment. Not to mention the fact that you're talking about a tax credit, and in a lot of cases historically, if you are a nonprofit housing organization, or you're a nonprofit business or a nonprofit entity, you really didn't have any incentive to have a tax credit because you don't pay taxes. But one of the things that also is part of this that we don't talk about here is, if you are a non-tax entity, you are able to get the cash equivalent for those credits. So if 30% of the value for a solar array, you get that calculation that the federal government would pay you to do that. So that's an important thing to note for this. Also, Inflation Reduction Act also created a Clean Energy and Sustainability Accelerator, which will seed state and local clean energy financing institutions to support deployment of distributed zero-emission technologies like heat pumps, community solar, and EV charging, while prioritizing over 50% of its investments in disadvantaged communities. We haven't really quite seen that money come out yet, but there is going to be a lot of resources that are going to be available to businesses, to individuals, to developers, that are going to allow them to have low to zero interest loans, forgivable loans, loans that can be converted into grants. And we are still waiting for that. I think, we're still waiting to find out if that's going to be deployed to the states, or that's going to be administered directly from the federal government. And so we are still waiting on some of that. This bill was passed into law last year. We are now almost 13 months past when it was signed, but we are still looking at not only the rules and regulations that needed to be filed to to make sure that these that these resources were properly distributed and that the mechanisms and structures was in place for them. But now also we're at the point now with a lot of these that if we aren't still waiting for that, we are now waiting to see if waiting for people to apply for this money. An example of that, rural electric cooperatives who wanted to get part of the $9.7 billion available to them to help with their clean energy transition. The initial part of that application is due today. I don't know if anybody here is from a rural electric cooperative, but if you are, I hope that Missouri's rural electric cooperatives have filed that letter of interest today. So that all comes from the Inflation Reduction Act fact sheet issued by the White House shortly thereafter this law was passed. Okay, and then also going further with that, I mean, I kind of mentioned if you look at this graph here, we were talking about some of the other aspects of the Inflation Reduction Act. You can see here we have that visualized tax reform, health savings, health care, and then we have this $391 billion that is going towards some of these programs. So that kind of gives you an idea and a sense of what this of what the IRA is doing. This also expands access to affordable, clean energy in tribal lands, provides rebates to families to purchase efficient electric appliances, brings clean energy to homes that have never had electricity access, which is a sad reality of a number of tribal communities, that they still have people who do not have access to electricity, which is particularly telling given that the power supplier for the cooperatives in Missouri, Associated Electric, also provides the power to rural electric cooperatives in eastern Oklahoma, which has got significant tribal land there. And so, hopefully this will be able to help with some of those areas as well. Then on this next one, we have the Inflation Reduction Act will also create a new grant program for improving energy efficiency that will help cover the cost when families need to replace energy appliances and equipment, and invests in energy projects and infrastructure through the Department of Energy's Tribal Loan Guarantee Program. So while there are lots of grants and loans and opportunities available for all Americans to take advantage of these upgrades and investments, there is a particular focus on making sure that areas, not just specific disadvantaged communities, say here in Missouri, but also making sure that these are particularly accessible to tribal lands. So that is, let's see what else we got here. Okay. This is from President Joe Biden's speech. President Biden forged consensus and compromise between Democrats, Republicans, and independents to deliver the bipartisan infrastructure law. Historic investment in America's crumbling infrastructure that will rebuild roads and bridges, replace lead pipes, help provide high-speed internet to every family in America, deliver cheaper and cleaner energy to households and businesses, and produce concrete results that change people's lives for the better. So this is the infrastructure bill. This is not the Inflation Reduction Act, but there are funds available to help particularly local governments such as cities and counties invest in clean energy. And if you have questions about what that would look like, we certainly have some of that material that we can share with you about what is available to local governments. So as far as the bipartisan infrastructure law that was signed on November 6th of 2021. Oh, look, and we got a little bit of some of our words here are jumbled up a little bit, so forgive us for that. Some of the objectives were to strengthen our nation's resilience to extreme weather and climate change, clean up toxic pollution, to expand access to clean drinking water, to remediate legacy pollution, and to deliver electric school buses. So you can see that there are a number of topics and issues in the BIL that cross with the Inflation Reduction Act that are also a part of the mission of the Justice40 initiative. So it is not just the Inflation Reduction Act where you're seeing these benefits available. They are also here too. I want to say something really quick about the delivery of electric school buses. This is something that we've been working on for a while. We've been working on this since last fall. There has been a real push by the Department of Transportation and the EPA to make sure rural school buses are being electrified. And one of the reasons why that is the case is because you have a lot of large school districts, like let's say in St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Springfield, and a lot of those contract their bus services out to like Student Transportation of America or someone like that. But this is supposed to be geared towards school districts that have their own fleet. And one of the things I can also share, if anyone's interested in looking at it, we did provide this information in our newsletter that went out this summer. The state of Missouri had more applications for rural electric school buses than any other state in the country. And there have been a large number, compared to other states, a lot of electric school buses have been awarded to rural school districts around the state. We are very proud of that. We are very excited about that. That is one issue where Renew Missouri and utility companies, particularly rural electric cooperatives, do see agreement on. We do, we do want to see those combustible engines, those diesel fuel engines, kind of go to the wayside for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the kids, for the benefit of the school district. And Missouri has really taken that lead. And as a kid who rode a school bus 1 hour to and 1 hour back every day from my rural community, I have to say I'm very proud of Missouri for getting on top of that issue and making those healthier and safer. So that's in there. So Miracle, is your voice cleared up? Are you ready to go again?
Yes. So another aspect of this law or this bill that's really important is improving resilience to extreme weather and climate change. So again, people of color are more likely to live in areas that are most vulnerable to flooding and other climate change related weather events. And I have another anecdote because I live in an area that was right next to this small village, and it was predominantly made up of African Americans and low income housing, and it was not in Cape Girardeau, but right next to it. And so the Mississippi River goes right through or right in front of Cape Girardeau and in front of this village. It's called Smelterville. And every year it would flood really, really bad. And so whenever the flood wall was built, it got built all along Cape's edge, and they stopped right at Smelterville, which had a predominant population of African Americans and low income housing. And every year, these people were displaced because the flooding got really bad. So instances like this happen all over the state and all over the country. And so this law is really good because it seeks to invest $50 billion to protect communities against droughts, heat waves, wildfires, and floods. So it can be it's a lot of communities have to deal with things like this. I know in Missouri we have plenty of droughts and heat waves and floods, not necessarily many wildfires. So I know that this aspect of the law will really, really benefit Missourians. And it's also the largest investment in the resilience of physical and natural infrastructure in American history. And it also seeks to invest in the weatherization of American homes. So again, it's a really, really good thing that could really be used in Missouri. And I can go to the next one. And then, okay, so legacy pollution is another really big thing that this law works to help with. So what is legacy pollution first? Pollution is pollution that's caused by persistent materials that remain in the environment long after they were first introduced. So again, this may be a shocker, but this again disproportionately affects minority communities. For example, more than 1 in 4 Black and Hispanic Americans live within 3 miles of a Superfund site. And a Superfund site is a location that's been polluted with hazardous materials, which have been dumped, left out in the open, or improperly managed. And so what this bill or what this law will do is invest $21 billion to clean up these Superfund sites. It'll work to reclaim abandoned mine land and also cap orphan oil and gas wells. So it's doing some really great things for these communities. Sorry, y'all. Can go to the next slide.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was just and I'll let you kind of catch your let you clear your throat a little bit. I just was noticing, where all of these are located around Missouri. And I mean, most of them are kind of where you would expect them to be. You have them in Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield. You also have a lot of them around the mining belt that kind of is at the top of southeastern, south central Missouri. But then you also have a few of them down there in southeast Missouri, which are kind of, I believe, a little pronounced just because I don't think of, I don't, you largely southeast Missouri is known for agriculture and not necessarily a lot of industry down there. So it's just interesting to see some of those dots in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
I also noticed there's a lot in Joplin too, because I used to do mining there, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of that, but there used to be a pretty significant mining industry in the kind of very southwestern part of the state as well. Okay.
Okay. So the Department of Energy has been very involved in Justice40. And they say that, according to them, they say that Justice40 provides a pathway for equitable deep decarbonization that transforms and builds wealth in underserved and overburdened communities. And then James, I might have you jump in here to kind of give a bit more detail on these, but the DOE has over 140 justice covered programs that include, I think all of these on here were created by the BIO. So we have the Energy Improvement in Rural and Remote Areas program. We have the Energy Storage Demonstration Pilot Grant Program, which will build energy storage systems to improve security and reliability, and also facilitate more clean energy on the grid. We have the new Solar Research and Development Program, and we also have the Weatherization Assistance Program, which reduces energy costs for low-income households by increasing the energy efficiency of their homes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about that. In regards to that first bullet point, the Energy Improvement in Rural and Remote Areas program. A lot of that, if you look at like what is being offered there, it is not necessarily for projects. What that is to help with technical issues, to help develop local ordinances, local laws. That is to allow small governments, local governments, county governments who might not necessarily have large staffs to be able to develop siting regulations, and to make sure that they are because I mean this is a problem in Missouri, especially in rural Missouri, that you have a number of counties. Most of the rural counties in the state do not have any type of zoning whatsoever. And so then they always try to like have this kind of spot. I mean, it's not spot zoning, but they try to have like this very specific zoning that is trying to ban certain things. You see a lot of aggravation going on around wind, around solar. You have a lot of local opposition to that, and a lot of county government officials who are trying to do something about that, whether they have these zoning mechanisms in place or not. I think what this funding is going to be able to do is hopefully allow governments to get a better sense of what they're going to be able to do in order to help make sure that these to make sure that they're following the law and make sure they're following technical rules. So we're very hopeful about that. Energy storage, again, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have anywhere involving energy, is the fact that you got to use it just about as soon as you make it and as soon as it can go down a set of wires. So what we are hoping, certainly for folks who work in clean energy policy like myself and Miracle, we are very much hoping that we are going to start seeing more energy storage. We're going to start seeing more batteries. We're going to start seeing that technology advance, which ultimately will lead to that those types of storage systems to be cheaper and more efficient. I think they certainly follow under the Moore's law of microchips, where the more you work on it, the more you make them, the cheaper and better they become. So we are really hoping that we see that. Yeah, there's a lot of solar and development that is being promoted to agribusiness, to small farms, to ranches, that is trying to encourage them. You see a lot of that, not just in research and development, but also just in the implementation of that. And of course, weatherization. That's something that is, we think is very important here at Renew Missouri, considering we do a lot of work in energy efficiency. It's not very indicative of our name, but we do more and more work with energy efficiency. And while we support programs like LIHEAP and other forms of assistance, we believe weatherization is really critical, because that can help lower bills for low-income households, and also have those be more permanent solutions. Hopefully that assistance program will be able to have a further reach through this Justice40 program. There we go. Back to you, Miracle.
Awesome. So to kind of wrap everything together, the benefits of Justice40 to these communities is really, really high, or they're really, really great benefits. And we have 6 of the benefits here. So it works to reduce the heightened risk of pollution and energy burdens in disadvantaged communities. It promotes equity to communities that have been historically disadvantaged. It reduces health risk and economic barriers that have been created by environmental hazards. It provides access to clean energy resources to low-income households. It reduces pollution in disadvantaged communities by monitoring and remediating Superfund sites. And it builds the resilience of disadvantaged communities against extreme weather and climate change. So all of these things are really working towards that environmental justice component, making sure that these communities get the justice that they deserve, and all of the benefits that they really truly deserve, and making these communities just have all the equity that they deserve.
Okay. I wish I could figure out how to get back on here. Oh, okay. Let's stop. Let me see if I can stop sharing here. Oh, here we go. I found it. All right. Yay, I can do technology. Good for me. Did we have any questions? Do we have no questions? Does anyone have any questions they want to ask? Do I have any former lawyers who worked at Renew Missouri who want to help me out, or are they going to make me do this myself? I see 2 former Renew Missouri lawyers on here, so this is why I thought I would ask. One of the things I will add to this, especially with the focus on rural policy, we mentioned that the New Era funds, that is going to be providing $9.7 billion to rural electric cooperatives to help them with their clean energy transition, is going to be the deadline for letters of interest are going to be due today to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I really am very hopeful that a lot of disadvantaged communities, which not only include a lot of communities in St. Louis, Kansas City, and some of our larger populated areas, but also does include a lot of rural Missouri. Some of the poorest areas per capita in Missouri are around the Missouri-Arkansas border. They are isolated, they are desolate, the people do not live close together. So being able to develop an infrastructure there and being able to deliver things like power and other social services is immensely difficult. And so, we are very hopeful that that money can be used and can be put to making sure that is being done. Okay, and I see I have a hand up, so I'm going to allow you to talk, Jackie H.
All right, this is Jackie Hutchinson. So my question is, what kind of outreach has been done to those rural electric co-ops and support for, like doing the grants and that kind of thing? Um, and the second part of that is, if today is the deadline and they didn't know about it, do they get a second chance to apply for those funds?
Well, okay, yeah, those are good questions. And Miracle, I'll kind of take a broad perspective, and you can talk a little bit about the work that we've done in Southeast Missouri. Renew Missouri has, like, let's first note that rural electric cooperatives, distributive co-ops, there's about 43 of those operating in the state of Missouri. While they provide about 15% of the power in Missouri, there are a lot of really small service territories there that are served by larger organizations that provide the generation and transmission of that power. We have targeted certain areas of the state. We have looked at Southwest Missouri, Southeast Missouri, Central Missouri, and we have had a number of what we call member owner meet and greets where we invite. Well, I need to go back a little bit before that. Last fall, we sent out 25,000 surveys to rural electric cooperative members around the state in certain service territories, asking them what they think about their co-op, asking them whether they think they should provide more renewable energy, more energy efficiency, have more transparency in their governance. We received about 1,600 of those back. And we had a lot of results. We had a lot of folks who said they were interested in that. They were interested in working with their co-op to make sure that they did that. So we did that outreach. We've had member meetings. Miracle, we've also worked pretty extensively at the SEMO co-op, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually had a community meeting in down in Howardsville. We met with local pastors there, because one thing that we've kind of found is that pastors have a lot of outreach to like the community, especially in the smaller African American communities. The church is a really big part of the community. So by targeting first the town, and then the most central and most influential aspect of that town, we've had the meetings, and we were able to get community input on what they thought about this topic, and how we can help them the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and we're not done with that work either. We are looking at doing another event in November. We've had about 7 or 8 of these around the state, which is us going directly to those communities and working directly with member owners who live there. I have not found it necessarily effective for me to swoop in from Columbia to say I'm here to help. We are working with community leaders on that. And to answer your second question, Jackie, as far as the New Era funding deadline of today, this is for the letter of interest. I am not aware of any there that was extended from August 1st. So this was an extension because there were a lot of co-ops that said they did not think they could get done by August 1st. So this is the extension. It's not the full application, and I don't think they are required to do the letter of interest, but the full application will be due later in the year. But I am not aware of any opportunity that if you miss this deadline, that you will be able to make it up later. I would also note, because this is around the country, and it's $9.7 billion, which $9.7 billion is a lot of money. But when you're looking at, the needs of the rural electric cooperative to make this transition, they're only limiting this to up to $970 million per application for a successful application. So there's only going to be about, at most or at least, 10 of these that get awarded. So I think the issue is going to be not so much if the application is going to be granted, and whether we can work to get more funding.
Yeah.
I saw okay. Can you give an example of an entity that has applied for any of these funds, and you know the status of those applications? Good question, Sandy. Sandy Paget of Consumer Council of Missouri, along with Jackie Hutchison. I can tell you that there are examples under the BIL, under the infrastructure law, that we have seen a number of communities who are receiving small grants to build solar. But as far as under the IRA, as far as like, let's say the Solar for All program, which is a significant amount of money that would allow housing, for there to be, funding for housing and apartments to get that. There are a lot of entities in Missouri working on that right now, including the state of Missouri, but they are still in that process. I guess a cynical person would tell you that a lot of these deadlines were set pretty late in 2023 to make sure that money showed up in 2024 when this existing administration is going to be up for re-election. That's just my political guess is why this has been delayed to a certain degree. I cannot tell you, I am not aware of anyone who has received this. I can say, however, on the infrastructure law, again, on that electric school bus program, we have a huge list of, let me see if I can find it here. We have a huge list of school districts that as of, and there's a fire truck going by me, so forgive me for that. You can see, here's a list of, like at the top here, El Dorado Springs received 13 electric buses at a value of $5.1 million. And that's under the infrastructure law. And that is the largest award that's been given to a school district in Missouri. So that is, that's an example. We have a lot of examples of that. That's a good question. And then Aaron Young, it's not a question, but an issue we have to figure out how to overcome is that many of these communities do not have the capacity to apply for and administer federal grants. Absolutely correct. That is absolutely right. One of the things that is being under that technical assistance that we were talking about under BIL, there is a number of assistance that the Department of Energy and the Department of, like, let's say if the school district with the Department of Transportation, they are going to be able to help with some of that work. Because yes, one of the things that we've found in talking to people is talking to leaders in municipalities around the state is, they don't have the bandwidth for this. So we are also trying to make sure they are aware of these opportunities to simply seek assistance. And we have also offered to help with some of that application as well. So if you know anyone who is struggling with that and struggling with the ability to get that done, send them to us because we'd love to help. Okay. Hey, look, miracle, we made it to 12:53. Are there any other questions? Well, then I am going to thank all of you for attending. It means a lot to me that you're all here. You will all be getting a recording of this. And so I hope if you found it useful, you can do that. If you have any other information that you want, james@renewmo.org is how to get a hold of me. Sadly, because we mentioned Miracle is going to be focusing a lot on the LSAT, she will be leaving us at the end of this month. But we are looking for somebody in Southeast Missouri that can take over her very big shoes and help us there. So if you know anyone, please let us know. Okay, I'm going to end the webinar now, but I want to thank you all for your time, and I want to thank you all for your support and your interest, and you all have a great Friday. Bye.